So just to recap on treatises, a bunch of questions that I got from you all doing the workshop last time, and this is a question we get all the time, is this a treatise? How do I know this is a treatise? And probably the best answer I can give you, although maybe not very satisfying, is don't worry about it. Basically, you are looking for an in-depth resource on a particular subject by an expert. So really what you don't want is a case, you don't want a statute, you don't want a newspaper or an article or a website that's only a couple of pages long. You want something that goes in depth. Maybe a more satisfying answer is meeting all those criteria, particular subject, in depth, usually by an author, although you may not necessarily easily identify the author. Sometimes a treatise is edited by several editors with contributions by a whole bunch of people. Don't worry about those details. Next question, a very important one. How do I find it? We tried some of the workshop on Lexis and Westlaw, again, just typing in the terms or browsing through the directory or the browse resource on Lexis or on Bloomberg. Another great way is a research guide. We had talked about research guides and Googling them. Research guides are a great way to find treatises because those will be recommended by people who know something about the area. There's also the library catalog. So you can find what treatises may I actually get my hands on or mouse on, because we do have some ebooks, as I showed you last time, through the library catalog. Of course, that's great now while you're here at Hofstra, but for those of you who are graduating and going to points distant, that may not be as convenient. Those of you who are graduating and staying points local, you are welcome to come back, as I've mentioned many times. Another way to find a treatise, although honestly I don't recommend it, which is why we didn't really talk about it a great deal, although it was mentioned in the screencast, is worldcat.org. And WorldCat is a basically database of databases. WorldCat compiles many different libraries' catalogs and dumps it all in a single searchable database. You can sometimes figure out what library a particular title is in. The reason I don't, so WorldCat is a great way to identify if a treatise exists on a particular subject or if a particular title you have is actually the right title. We use it a lot for journal students. I don't recommend it because, so I type in our terms, and ooh, that looks really good. How am I going to find that? It may exist. I will check it in the Hofstra Library catalog for sure to see if we have it, but I could just check the Hofstra Library catalog to see if we have it. And then trying to find it elsewhere becomes a bit of a bother. It's doable. You might find a library that will, we could try to interlibrary loan it again while you're still here. Once you graduate and are practicing, unfortunately we can't do that anymore, so you might find a public library, or maybe if you're lucky enough to be in an institution that has a librarian, but then it starts to get more complicated, and do you really want to spend your very precious time trying to locate a random title when there probably are other easier accessible titles that you can get to, especially Lexis and Westlaw if you have that available, Bloomberg likewise, and some of the other things we mentioned. Even if you are points distant, there will hopefully be a law library somewhere in your vicinity, and you may or may not be able to have privileges to access that library. Okay, before we go any further, any questions? So at long last, I've been promising since class 1, we will talk about costs. There are handouts up here on costs, so if you haven't already picked them up, come on up. Some of you have done the extra credit, which is great. Just a reminder for those of you who have not, complete that by Thursday. I also wanted to remind you while people are picking up, I haven't heard back from anybody, so we are set for extending our classes as our makeup for the snow day that we've missed, and those extended classes will be in March. The reason I'm doing that is that it fits best with the subjects we're covering at the time. And also I figured people might want to have a little bit of time to plan ahead if they have anything that they need to plan around. So starting March 10th, 12th, and the 17th will be the days that we go from 4 to 6. I will be sending you probably more emails than you want to get to remind everybody about that. Okay, any questions about extended classes? All right, at long last, let's talk about costs. Basically, I'm going to talk about Lexis and Westlaw in one bundle, and I'm going to talk about Bloomberg and everybody else in the other bundle. And the reason for that is, for the most part, and there will be exceptions, Lexis and Westlaw charge you as you use it. Now, they have different structures, as some of you saw on the extra credit, but you have to be conscious of what you're using. You may need to be conscious about how long you're using it, or how many searches or transactions you do. It depends on the service. It depends on your plan. Everybody else, Bloomberg included, some of the databases we talked about for finding treatises, CCH, RAA, BNA, which is owned by Bloomberg, they all charge a flat fee. So you pay whatever it is they charge you or your institution, and then you can search 24/7 if you're crazy enough to do so, and it doesn't change the cost. So your strategy obviously is going to change depending on whether and how much you're paying. So you'll see handouts on Lexis and Westlaw. When we go into those services, I'll show you how to find this very information. I'm not sure how often you'll really need to check it, but it's good to know. What you want to know about both of those most of all, and I can't emphasize this enough or say it enough, check with whomever is in charge in your institution to find out what your plan is. Just about every plan is different. If you're in a small firm, you're likely to have a smaller group of materials included in your plan, and a larger group outside the plan. The reason why the plan is so critical is that if something's in your plan, then by and large, it's kind of like a flat fee. You've paid your fee. If you are in a small firm and you subscribe to New York primary materials only, which is pretty limited, you can search New York cases, you can search New York statutes pretty much without limit. I say pretty much because what will happen is if you are crazy enough to search 24/7, they can tell how much you search, or anybody in your institution searches. And if they see you are far beyond the average, what will happen is the next year, that flat rate for what's inside your plan will go up. Rates go up every year. I'm sure you found that with rent you pay and insurance. Well, Lexis and Westlaw are no different. They raise the rates. The only question is how much. So you don't want to go too crazy, but if it's within your plan, you don't have to worry about it so much. What the handouts you are looking at, so let's just take a look at Westlaw to start somewhere. The handouts you are looking at are what it will cost you if it's not in your plan. So throughout secondary sources, I've been talking about, well, if it's in your plan, if it's not in your plan. And very frequently, some segment of secondary sources that we've looked at will not be in your plan. Again, it depends on what your institution chooses to pay for within the plan. So if it's not within your plan, then Westlaw is actually the most complicated. Westlaw, your institution can choose to be charged for out-of-plan documents either by what's called transaction, how many times you search, or by the minute. So you see in the top here, per minute, and then you see per transaction. Now it's even more complex in that you are charged for the transaction, and then if you have the transactional plan, and then you're charged by the document. So a search may or may not cost you depending on whether you're on the transactional, but when you view the document, that's when the major charge comes in. So what Westlaw is trying to do is to encourage you, and actually Lexis works the same, is that you can search without worrying too much. It's when you view the document that you get charged. And then it depends, that the per document view depends on whether you're per transaction or by the document or you're under the per minute. And I realize that's really fuzzy. Don't worry about it. Just know that you're worried about viewing the document, and you're worried about viewing the document that's outside of your plan. The extra credit, the little video that you go through, should show you what your screen might look like if that happens. I'm not going to go into too much detail other than to take a look, because some of this stuff costs an awful lot either per minute or per transaction. And notice the difference here, document viewed. Looking at the document is one charge, delivering the document is yet another charge. So what you want to learn are some cost-effective ways. Yeah?
What does document delivery mean? Does that mean downloading it, or?
It means downloading it, it means printing it, it means emailing it. If you put it in a folder, however, that's not a deliver charge. So that's why you want to take advantage of the folder feature. You all familiar with the folders? I think we talked a little bit about that. So you see they kind of organize this, at least to me, that doesn't make as much sense as I would like, in that you've got the per minute document viewed per minute on the far left, and document viewed if you're in the per transaction world on the right. Again, just notice that for a single document, so that's a single USCA section, can be either $25 if it's per transaction, or if it's per minute, for just a single minute, $20. Now, hopefully you have USCA in your plan, but maybe if you're just a very small single practitioner and really all you do is state materials, you wouldn't want to pay for that. So it's possible. And when we talk about statutes and cases, we'll be talking about free sources, which is definitely where you'll want to go first. You may wind up wanting to even pay for all of this, depending on what your research is, but there are free options out there. So the point of pointing out those numbers is just that it can add up super quick. I hear stories from law firm librarian colleagues where brand new associates are used to the quote-unquote free law school access, which actually, as we were talking about earlier, isn't free because it's from your tuition, but flat rate for the library. So you get used to that, and then some associate who really wants to impress and searches all night and is online for however many hours he or she's online, and the bill comes out to be like, for what this single session, $5,000 or something ridiculous like that. So don't be that associate or new attorney. It can add up quickly. The best advice I can give you overall for Lexis Westlaw is find out about your plan. Somebody's going to know about it. It might be the librarian, it might be the managing partner. Somebody will have negotiated with Lexis or Westlaw or both, and will know what's included. And I am firmly convinced that whoever that is will be very impressed when you come in as a new employee, as a new lawyer, and say, okay, I know I'm going to have to use this. What are the parameters of our plan? They'll be very appreciative that you are cost conscious in that way. Lexis pretty much is a lot simpler than Westlaw in that it doesn't divide up that transactional versus per minute. It's just, you look at a document, you get charged. You deliver a document, you get charged. And again, those are two separate functions depending on what you see here. Same parameters apply. This is only if you are looking at a document that's not inside your plan. So again, understanding your plan is critical. And then you can just see how it shakes out. Right now, one interesting aspect, Lexis, because they know they're still the other guys and competing with Westlaw, Shepard's at present is free. I would guess that will not be forever, and that's just yours truly, little prediction there. So for now, but be aware that may change. Keysight on Westlaw is not free. There's a transaction charge for that, as you can see. It's in here somewhere. And again, I wouldn't get too hung up on the details here, but you want to understand what your plan is once you are in an institution that's paying for this. And as I mentioned, Bloomberg, CCH, RIA, they are flat fee. So you pay whatever is negotiated, and then you don't have to worry about it, which is actually one of Bloomberg's selling points. They make sure they let you know in their advertising material to firms. I've heard them mention, you don't have to worry about all of that. Just concentrate on your research, which actually I think is a fair point. Any questions? Yeah.
Okay, I feel like it's somewhat irrelevant, but people map for Westlaw, what does that mean? They do reports on people?
Yeah, there's a lot of data, personal data available. That's actually one of the areas we don't have access under the law school contract.
I guess.
It's
Crazy.
pretty, yeah, it's pretty intense. I've seen it demonstrated, and people use the people who are doing the demonstrations use their own names so they don't violate people's privacy. But you can.
But you can pay to violate people's privacy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You can do that on the web too.
No, I know, and I just didn't think Westlaw was in the business of doing that. I figured it was like seedy guys and
So is Lexis actually.
Did not know that.
And
It's
there's
crazy.
more or less available depending. Yeah.
I can say in practice, almost all the cases we do that.
Really?
We do the
Jeez.
searches to see if there's any judgments or liens against people, to figure out if there's property. It's used a lot.
That's crazy.
And you find out all their dirt.
Actually, yeah, Lexis gives us, the law school contract, a little more access. Later on in the semester, if things shake out well, I'll show you a little demo.
Great.
And it's not too much, it's not the dirt Elena's talking about, but yeah, I don't know if they still have it, but these databases used to have social security numbers, which just scares the daylights out of me. I think they took it out,
You
okay.
have a Lexus ID.
But, well, that's a relief.
Terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, well, I mean, you all have heard this a million times from a million different people. There's a ton out there on all of us, especially for those of you who are like social media. I mean, that's a lot of, that's what all businesses do. I guess this will get recorded, oh well. Hofstra does a background check on all its employees. I mean, this day and age, you can kind of understand that. And I don't know this for a fact, but I would have to guess that someone's searching social media, which is why everybody tells you, be careful what you put on Facebook, Instagram, fill in the blank of whatever your favorite social media platform is. But it's out there. Any other questions? Okay, so those are costs. The rest of class we're going to focus on, it's going to be a dual purpose class in that we're going to talk about advanced search techniques on Lexis, Westlaw, Bloomberg, and I'm going to do that in the context of law review articles. I'm guessing most of you have searched at least Lexis and Westlaw for law review articles at some time or another. You've just done a term search and pulled up, and either you found useful stuff or you haven't. How many of you have done a Lexis Westlaw search for put in your terms and didn't find anything particularly useful? Anybody? Am I the only one? Nobody else? You've always found what you needed?
Oh, I think for the last one.
Okay, I mean, probably more often than not. Especially, the natural language algorithms are getting pretty good. So what I'm going to show you today are, again, advanced tools. I like the toolbox for when you don't find something useful using the natural language algorithm for law reviews, but also for any other types of materials as well. But of course, having talked about costs, and since we are talking about law reviews, how do I do that? Sorry about this. Somehow or other, all my setup gets messed up, and it has to do with the screencast. All right, so we're just going to wing it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is look at Google Scholar. Talked about it for a while. I haven't really looked closely at it. What I find when you do a general Google search is that you won't get as directed scholarly article results as you will when you search Google Scholar. So there is a difference between searching Google and Google Scholar. And as you can see, when I pull up Google Scholar, and I get to it by Googling Google Scholar, nothing magic there, I get a choice between searching articles, which is what we're talking about now. Google is not just law, so it's not just law review articles, and case law, We'll talk about the case law aspect of Google Scholar when we talk about cases. Now we're going to look at the articles. So I am just going to put in some of our search terms, and again, it's the Google search algorithm. Health maintenance organization. So you can see what the Google Scholar results look like. Some of them will be non-legal, depending on your search. Some of them will be legal, some will be law review articles, again, depending on your search, because my search terms are less legally oriented. If I used a legal search, and by legal search I mean legal terms, you're far more, so now we have the University of Pittsburgh Law Review. Sometimes, again, depending on where you are physically situated, Google will recognize you're at Hofstra and give you a link to where you might find it through the databases at Hofstra, probably Hein Online, which we'll talk about later. It's great when it works, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we don't have access to it if you don't see the find article, excuse me, at Hofstra. And so again, because I did a search with more legal terminology, we're getting more legal journal. So if you're looking for law reviews, I would start with Google Scholar. You may or may not get access to the article. Why would you look for articles? A very important question. Of course, law professors focus on law review articles because they write it, and also because they're interested in investigating the intellectual aspects of the law and discussing what the law should be. So that's pretty, not always, but I would say more than half the time, law review articles are making an argument about what the law should be. The great thing about law review articles, even though they're talking about the law, what it should be, is that by talking about what it should be, they're talking about what it is. And they're doing here's what it is, here's what I think it should be, is pretty much a summary of a lot of law review articles, right? Okay, so it's a great place to find what the law is. And because law review articles come out more frequently than longer, more in-depth treatises, law review articles might be a place to find out more cutting-edge developments in the law, cutting-edge developments. So that would be a reason I might go to law review articles as opposed to treatises. And certainly law review articles will be more in-depth than encyclopedias or some of the current awareness resources that we looked at earlier. So that's kind of a little backwards way into the why on law review articles. So I would start with Google Scholar, by all means. But as you can see, it's pretty hit or miss. So let's dive in to Westlaw. And again, I apologize, we'll have to sign in. Okay. So the first advanced feature that I've already alluded to is your search terms. So of course we're going to search our terms and whatever combination of terms we think will make sense. We might try it one way and then try a different set of terms. Again, we want to be aware exactly how we might or might not be charged on Westlaw, because there's that transaction per minute. Typically, though, a charge, or rather a search. Okay, and we've been going into secondary sources, and then scrolling down and filtering using our post-search filters to decide what type of material we want to look at, if we want to limit it that way, or we can just scroll through and say, hey, what's useful here? Well, that's the nice thing about Westlaw Next and searching everything, is that you don't have to decide I want a treatise or a law review or an encyclopedia. I can just look and see what's good. So here we've seen this before. This has to do with member physicians, not interested. This has to do with similar managed care, but that's Massachusetts. So the problem, of course, with just what's good is you may or may not find something that's good. Here's that American jurisprudence proof of facts. That looks good, but we haven't learned about proof of facts yet, so I'm not going to dive into that quite yet. So one advanced search technique is just being aware of using different search terms. Another advanced search technique is using connectors. So as some of you conceded, sometimes, not frequently, you'll be searching for something on Westlaw or Lexis, and just throwing in your search terms as I did won't pull up anything useful. So that's not really the case, and let's now narrow to law review articles so we can talk about those as well. And I'm just going to look at publication type, and remember, if I don't see what I'm looking for, I can expand it by clicking on publication types, and now I can limit to law reviews. So we may or may not find what we're looking for. What we want to remember that is available is we don't have, Westlaw has this wonderful natural language capability, just like Google, and it's actually pretty good. I grant them that. So I definitely do that first. Definitely do what's easier first. But when that doesn't work, and there will be times that it doesn't, some of you have conceded that anyway, then you may want to try the old-fashioned terms and connectors. You may want to try them in your initial search up here in the box up here, or what you may want to do is take advantage of one of the advanced search techniques. Don't know, search within results. Search within results, you have to use the connectors. It does not use a natural or plain language search. If you just throw in words, I think it will use the OR connector. And by the OR connector, if you take a look at this handout was printed out from Bloomberg. I chose Bloomberg just because I happen to like how it's laid out, honestly. And this link actually, in case you lose this link is, and I've been meaning to show you this, so I'll show you it now. In our course homepage, on the left, I have a category class web links. And the useful links that we talk about in class, I will put in here. So actually, some of you had difficulty getting into Bloomberg last time, understandably, because it's not intuitive. So here's just a link to Bloomberg, and here's the Boolean searching link. And actually, some of the resources we've talked about with regard to secondary sources are in the secondary sources folder. So the tax prof blog I mentioned, and law prof blog, those links are there. So that's where this is in case you lose the handout and want to refer back to this. So taking a look at this, if you use connectors, so instead of just typing in all your words, liability, HMO, health maintenance organization, you connect each of those words with connectors. These are the connectors that are available to you on all three services. And as I mentioned on Westlaw, for the search within results, a really, really useful advanced search technique. If I want to focus in now, I've got my basic liability HMO, and I want to focus in on our ERISA preemption. Yes, I could type in ERISA preemption, and it would pull up documents with those words, but it would pull up documents with either one or the other, which wouldn't be so bad in our case, but it might wind up totally skewing your searches in others. So what you want to get in the habit of doing, at least remembering that you can do, is using the connectors. So the OR connector is basically either or. If I wanted cat or feline, that I would get either one of those. You'd use the OR connector for synonyms. You'd use the AND connector to connect different parts, so you want both terms in your search. So if I wanted cat and dog, so I want to see both the word cat and the word dog, so I might want to try ERISA and preemption if I wanted both words in my search. The particular connectors that I find especially useful on Lexis, Westlaw, and Bloomberg that aren't available on Google, as it happens, are what are called the proximity connectors. So I started to type here ERISA space /P /P for paragraph. So that means within the same paragraph, and then a space after my connector, and then preempt. But I might want the word preemption, right? Or I might want the word preempts or preempted. I don't want to type preempt or preempted or preemption or preempted. I'm a terrible typist. I'm sure to get it wrong, and it's a pain. So what I want to do is I want to use what's called a truncation symbol. And on Lexis, Westlaw, and Bloomberg, that's the exclamation. This should all be sort of review from what you learned in first year. So now I search within results, and from my first set of liability HMO health maintenance, I now get all of the articles that talk about ERISA within the same paragraph as preemption. Now maybe I want to even narrow it further and have it within the same sentence. I can do that also on Lexis and Westlaw and Bloomberg, and that's just /S. Works, hopefully makes sense. And all of these again are described. I'm only mentioning a couple on these handouts. Those are the and or /S/P are the ones I use 99% of the time. The only other aspects of this handout that I use a lot is the exclamation point. So I get preempt, preempted, preemption without having to type it all. And of course, quotations for a phrase, which we've talked about already. And actually I already did in my search up top. Yeah, question.
For the search within results, I didn't know in the past that you have to use the connectors, but say you do just an initial search like ERISA, and then you remember afterwards I don't know if it adds that as a filter like Lexis, but then you do another search. Does that still count as like a or an and?
Okay, I'm going to undo search within results. Now,
You know what I'm saying? Like if you do
not
that-
sure,
I'm
but
not
I'm
sure
going
what
to try.
does it, but-
Okay, so search within results. I can put in my terms without any connectors or truncation, and I will get results. Whoops, helps if you spell things correctly. Preemption, looks good. And I think, now I'm going to change the sorting here. Actually, I don't know that Westlaw's going to let me do this. No, and I'm changing the sorting just to illustrate. It's not something you necessarily want to do. You will get documents. See here, for example, is a document that doesn't have ERISA. So it's using the OR connector. It's still sorting it by relevance, so you don't really see that your initial results are sorted by relevance, so you don't really see that with the initial results. But if I were to go down, we have 504 results. If I were to go down to result 400, you would likely find results that are show you that you're using the OR connector.
Right.
So it still works. You still can do it. It just may not give you the results that you really want. Again, this is a tool that you will not use that frequently. I can see the /S/P and or, but it's good to know about when the natural language, plain language, isn't working for you. Did that answer your question? Because I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
Yes and no. I think maybe Lexis is a little different when you do the search within results, because I tend to use Lexis. I think it adds that search within results as kind of a filter,
Right.
and then you can do it again, and you could continue to search different results. So I was wondering if those different filters, if they use an or they use an and between the different. So say you.
So you use multiple search within results.
Yeah, I don't know if that counts.
I don't know. I don't know how they structure it. So if you had search within the results and then searching within that already narrowed,
Yeah,
my guess is
it would continue. It would add.
I would guess it would be an and,
Okay.
but I don't know the answer. I'm going to play with that later. And if I can figure it out, I'll let you know. Question?
That was my question. I was going to wait to see if it came up in Lexis.
Okay, well, we'll be diving into Lexis in a little bit, so let's see how that goes, if we can figure that out or not. Okay, so those are terms and connectors. Honestly, becoming less and less useful because the plain language is becoming better and better on Google, on Westlaw, I'm less of a fan of Lexis's plain language capabilities, and as we will see, and I'm giving away the store a little bit here, you have to use connectors on Bloomberg. Bloomberg does not have a natural language algorithm yet. So if you just throw in words, which is what happened to several of you when you were looking for treatises last time, if you just throw in words, it'll just use the or connector. So my whole liability, HMO, health maintenance, it'll be liability or HMO or health maintenance. So if just the word liability appears in the document, Bloomberg's going to pull it up, which is obviously useless. So if you're using Bloomberg, you still absolutely do need terms and connectors. For Lexis Westlaw, less so, but useful to know both for the search within results, because it isn't a natural language search, as well as just generally when the natural language search just isn't working for you. And I can say that still happens to me. I do the natural language search, and it's just, especially if you're using very generic type words, so that a lot of different types of areas of law come up, that's when I want to smush them together with a /s or a /p. Any other questions? Okay. So another advanced feature on Westlaw is the advanced search. And you see the little advanced here? Now this is where you want to take advantage of the directory, because the advanced search here will be very generic because it's searching every type of document. And this will make more sense, I think, if I show you. So if we go into secondary sources, and again, you can use any type of document, but since we're talking about law reviews today, I'm going to go into law reviews. And then if I click on advance, Westlaw is being what's called context specific. It's saying, okay, you want an advanced search in law reviews? What type of fields do we have in law reviews that you might want to search independently? Fields are just a part of a document. So as you can imagine, a law review is going to have very different types of parts than, say, a case or a newspaper. So you will see different fields depending on which type of document you search, which is why I like to go in through the directory so I can get those very specific types. So here in law reviews, I can just search all of the terms like we've just done. Or what I like to do with law reviews, and again, when I'm not getting any good results with my regular plain language search, I might say, all right, I just want articles about this particular item. I'm fairly certain that at least some articles are going to have my words in the title. So I can tell Westlaw, hey Westlaw, I want to search just the title portion of the law review because that's what I'm interested in. And again, because we're in an advanced search, we want to use the connectors. In this case, you actually probably don't really have to, because a title is what, 2 sentences at most? So if you just threw in the words, the or connector would probably be okay, but there probably are instances when it isn't. So if we just go ahead, and just to give you an example of how to use the connectors, so liab, so I get liability, liable, and so forth. Space, I want that within the same paragraph as HMO, or again, health maintenance organization, because I don't know whether it'll be abbreviated or not. And you can see it populating up top. And maybe I want to also add managed care as a possibility, since we learned that that's another term used. And you can see it's populating in Westlaw saying, hey, I'm doing an advanced search. And I'm doing an advanced search within the title field, abbreviated TI, and then the field, Westlaw knows it's a field search because of the parentheses. You don't have to worry about any of that. In the old days, you used to have to. But Westlaw knows what to put in for the advanced search. Question?
I mean, I know you're showing this, but you wouldn't have to put the paragraph in here, just the title search, because it's all going to be in the same paragraph.
Right. You're absolutely right. I could use, and would make the most sense. Okay. And I've already done this for illustrative purposes, but the sort can be useful, especially for something like law reviews, where the date of the article might be relevant. Because look, we're seeing something from 1997. We kind of know there's something that went on in the 2000s that affected what we're interested in. Or we just want a more recent law review article because we want to know what the law is today, not in 1997, which was a long time ago. So maybe we want to sort by date. I wouldn't automatically sort by date, and I wouldn't only look at the most recent, because there are a lot of good law review articles out there that are on the older side that can be useful. Another advanced technique, and this is mostly for secondary sources and really especially for law review articles. Okay, so here we see this first one. After this case that we've seen referred to a couple of times, 2006, still kind of on the old side, but still worth looking at, because it's going to give us some background and explanation and citations, all the reasons that we've been talking about looking at secondary sources. But another aspect, and again an advanced aspect, for secondary sources is the Citing References tab. And again, especially useful for law review articles, but also useful for other types of secondary sources too. Who else has cited to this particular useful document? And again, because it's kind of old, anybody citing to it's going to be newer by definition. So let's take a look at citing references. And Westlaw lets us know what kind of documents. In our particular instance, it's only secondary sources. There are no cases that cited to this. There are no briefs or any other type of document that cited to this. But I'm seeing references to other secondary sources that cited to my article. ERISA preemption and RICO's recourse. We didn't even know RICO had any application. Maybe it's useful for us, maybe not. It'd be worth taking a quick look. Here's something from Illinois practice. Since we're in New York, not especially useful. Here's another, litigating tort cases. Ooh, we hadn't really thought about what theory we're going under to litigate. Maybe we want to think a little bit about torts and how that might apply, and maybe there's a way to escape ERISA preemption if we use a tort theory. No idea, but let's take a look. Again, 2014, nice and recent too. So again, another citing references, another advanced technique to use when you are searching for secondary sources especially. And we'll see on Lexis, Shepard's does the same thing. You can Shepardize a law review article, another secondary source, to see whom else has cited it. Okay, any questions about Westlaw before I dive into Lexis? Again, sorry, I have to log in again. Now you will forgive me, I am a little bit biased, at least with regard to advanced searching. Oh, that didn't work. I was trying to do a shortcut. So now I'm going to have to type. But again, just as we did on Westlaw, we can just do a natural language search, and a lot of the time that will work. Actually, in just the last year, I have found Lexis to be a lot better. Just going to copy that so you don't have to watch me type it again. And just to show you, to find law review articles, it works just like every other secondary source. We take a look at the results. Remember to click on more categories. I was playing around with forms earlier, so now I'm starting in forms. But if I click on more, then I can find everything else, and somewhere in here, and because it changes the order, we find secondary materials. And then once we're in our secondary materials, we can do our post-search filter and narrow to law reviews or any other type of secondary source, or just scroll through and not care and just look for something useful, as I was suggesting with Westlaw. And here's the search within results. Whoops. If we just throw in our terms, and again, that can work. but it won't be a plain language search. It will be an either or search. And as Adam mentioned, what you see is basically it considers the search within results a filter. So let's do another search. So we now have 1614. Let's see what happens if we add I've never done a double search. This is what you mean, right? A double search
Yeah.
within results?
Sometimes I think of like a different term to use rather than closing the original search and doing another one. I'll just add it. I don't know what.
So I think the answer is it does a search within your already searched within results. So we went from 1614 to 862. So it just keeps on narrowing it further. Does that,
Yeah.
okay, that was what I understood your question to me. Okay. And again, we can sort. The default is sort by relevance. We can sort by date, newest to oldest. And now I have no idea what the results we're looking at since we've played around a little bit, but that's okay. And as you saw, my search within results, I just threw in my terms and I did come up with results. But again, that's not a natural language, it's not a plain language search. It would search for either or of it would use the or connector. And a lot of times you won't care, but some of the times you will, so it's good to know. Okay. So actually, I'm going to go back to relevance because I wanted to show you the one other aspect on Lexis. So here's Akron Law Review. And as I mentioned, you can shepherdize. So it's the equivalent of citing references. So we can see where else has this 1990-something Akron Law Review. If we thought this was the greatest thing ever, we want to see something more recent, see who cited to it. And that's just shepherdize. And there we go. So appellate history is doesn't really apply to law reviews. I guess that's just how it's programmed in Lexis. But other citing sources, and we get 10 other citing sources. And we can actually search within these results, and we see that they're different articles. So again, because we messed around with the search, they may not be particularly relevant, but if we had gone through, it might be a way of finding something more current that's relevant using the shepherdize. The only other thing I will mention on Lexis, and I'm just going to go back. When we were looking at our particular Akron Law Review that hopefully was very helpful, Lexis also has these topical summaries. So it can be another way. So Lexis sort of makes a determination of what topic your particular document comes under within the Lexis hierarchy, and it says, here's some summaries on those particular topics. So actually, healthcare torts, malpractice, that could be useful. So this comes under my bibliographic awareness topic of, hey, let's check out what this is and see if it helps us any once we're here. So it gives us some definitions, some seminal cases. Again, quite basic, but possibly useful. Any questions? Now, Lexis does not have the advanced search where you can search by field, so you can't really. You technically can search by title, but just between you and me, it's a pain in the neck to figure it out. You have to go into the Lexis help and you have to find what's called a segment search help guide, and then you would find out what they call title, and then you'd have to put it in the parentheses like Westlaw did for us. And honestly, I know how to do it and I can't be bothered. So I just try to adjust my search either with the search within results or some other way on Lexis, or if I really want to search by title, honestly, I go into Westlaw. Question?
Yeah, so just to go back to that search within the results feature, if you were on Westlaw the only way to do that is to use the terms and connectors, because you can only do one search within. Is that correct?
I think it,
Like, for example, right there on that screen, you could do narrow by, narrow
Right,
by, and
right.
you have more, just more and more and more to search. But is there a way to do that on Westlaw, or do you have to throw it all in with connectors?
I think it modifies your search within results rather than giving you a second double, what I'm calling double
Right,
search
right,
within
right.
results. But the only way to find out, and this actually is relevant because when you have a good question, nobody knows everything about the systems, not even the people who designed them. I can't tell you how many times I ask our account reps who do this for their one system for a living, and they say, I have to get back to you on that. And then they're very pleased because they've learned something too. Actually, the search within results, we weren't sure whether it was a natural language. I had to ask the rep because I wasn't sure it was a natural language search or not, and it turns out, as I've told you, and confirmed that with our rep, it is not. Okay, so we don't have any search within results in this particular search, so let's just do a search. And then,
Right,
yeah,
that's
so you
like
can
the
see
only
it's
time you can do it.
pre-populated. Either I undo it or I add to it.
So you'd have to use terms and connectors within that first initial search within results.
Yeah,
In order to
exactly.
narrow it down further.
Exactly. So that's another good reason to know terms and connectors. I'll have to add that to my list. Thank you. Any other questions? So again, some advanced search techniques. Most are available on Lexis. The shepherdizing, certainly terms and connectors, search within results, which is probably the best one. Oh, and I should mention, search within results does not count as a search if you're in a transactional account on Westlaw. You don't have to worry about that on Lexis. So search within results, for those of you who watched the extra credit video, search within results is one of the main cost-saving tips that they give you. So sometimes what some experts will recommend is do a really broad search if you're paying per search, and then you can narrow it with multiple search within results or search within results with connectors or not with the connectors, and that's a way of only paying for one search and then doing a whole bunch of other searches that you don't pay for. Less of an issue with Lexis because you don't really pay for the search, you pay for the document that once you click on that law review article, you don't pay to view the results. Questions on Lexis before we dive into Bloomberg? Okay, Bloomberg, because they're the new guys on the block and haven't been around as long, they're still developing. As you've seen the little bit that you've done with our workshops. And as all of you saw on the screencast, Bloomberg doesn't have restatements. So again, Bloomberg's catching up. I'm not really going to talk much about restatements because I pretty much said what I felt was necessary in the screencast, but if you have questions, by all means. Some of you had some great questions in the Think portion, which I answered through TED-Ed, so take a look at that. But basically, to get to the restatements, as I mentioned, you just do the post-search filter and look at the document type and choose restatements if that's what you want. And of course, they'll come up in all of the results under secondary sources, so you might encounter them that way as well. And if you do have questions, by all means. So on Bloomberg, no restatements. There are a law review on Bloomberg, but not nearly the extensive variety of titles that you'll find on Lexis and Westlaw. And so I'm going into search and browse all legal content just to illustrate that point. So here in content type, I'm just drilling down with the plus sign to secondary sources, and this is what you do if you did want to search just law reviews on Bloomberg. And I can either click on law reviews to narrow my search, or I can click on the plus sign and you'll actually see the law reviews that are available. And it's a very short list compared to what's available on Lexis and Westlaw, and shame on Bloomberg, they don't have Hofstra. So just for that, I'm not searching law reviews on Bloomberg, because honestly, we've searched on Bloomberg. But what I will show you on Bloomberg, let's see. Since we were talking about it a little bit, and actually this is going to be my workaround to show BNA since I couldn't get to it otherwise. But as I did mention on Bloomberg, you must use, there's no choice here, you must use connectors. I could have run that search that I put in without the connectors, and I would have probably got, oh, let's see what happens. Liability. So there's a standard Lexis Westlaw search we've been doing. My understanding again on Bloomberg, oh, look, no results. Don't know why that would be, but so you know what, probably faster if I do type. So if we do our standard or the same search with our connectors for health maintenance organization or managed care. Now what you're getting is this drop down. Since you're less familiar with Bloomberg, because I have such a long search, you're not seeing the different types of searches we can do. So you have to know to scroll over, and then I see my choices on the far right here. So I can search all legal content, which is what we're going to do, or I can choose other types of search, citation, court opinions, these different types, some of which we've talked about. Most of the time you're going to do all legal content, which is just, hey, search Bloomberg for my particular terms. Bloomberg is slower as a rule. And I find Bloomberg gets slower the more terms you have in your search. It's like it's confused. So we get our typical results, and we can narrow it with our post-search filters, just as we've been doing throughout with all of the services. We could look at law reviews, but like I said, I'm boycotting Bloomberg because they don't have Hofstra. But obviously, if you wanted to see law reviews on Bloomberg, you just click on law reviews. I'm going to click on books and treatises just because some of you had difficulty finding treatises on Bloomberg last time. So I thought it would be worth a 2-minute review, assuming Bloomberg cooperates with the 2 minutes. So again, this is how you would find treatises, just doing a search and then narrowing post-search. And if you found, just as we did on Lexis and Westlaw, if you found a treatise that was particularly useful, you want to take a look at the section and then take a look at the table of contents and expand or not, depending on what looks of interest. And Bloomberg, I was chatting earlier with David about the different rationales for the pricing. Bloomberg, you would pay a flat fee. So once you have access, you can search to your heart's content, not worry about what's in your contract or what isn't. Everything on Bloomberg is in your contract. And we were talking a little bit about how Bloomberg prices. It's less expensive, but what Bloomberg did for us, the law library, which I suspect is going to be very different for law firms and other types of institutions, is it bundled Bloomberg Law with the BNA law reports that we looked at a little bit with current awareness. So I had you all in one of the workshops go through and look for a BNA that was law report that was relevant. Some of you found tax or securities, or we were looking at the pension benefits reporter for our ERISA question. So this would be another way to find those BNA law reports. So I'm going to X out of our books and treatises filter. And since I was having authentication issues earlier in answering David's question, I can do a runaround, which is always fun to do with computers, and do it another way since it wouldn't let me the first way. And I could see what I find. So I might want to look at the portfolios, which are part of those, or practice guides. These are other useful tools on Bloomberg for your research. They have law firm research. Bloomberg is trying to get the more practical, business-oriented market.
You may have already answered this, I missed it, but so when Bloomberg has a flat fee, that means it includes all the different sources in it, or does the plan vary by law firm? You know, like you could only pay a flat fee for cases, and that flat fee would be different for cases and secondary sources. Or does just Bloomberg have
It's
one
just-
single flat fee for
It's one single fee for everything on Bloomberg.
Okay.
You pay your fee, you get,
Get access to
eat all
it.
you want, it's all you can eat. It's probably different for different sized firms.
Right.
So they might charge less for a 10-person firm than they would for a 200-person firm,
Right.
understandably. But that 10-person firm is going to be able to search everything available on Bloomberg.
Okay.
All good questions? Any others? Okay, I mentioned very briefly Hein Online. Have any of you used Hein Online? Okay, a couple of people. Hein Online is also flat fee, by the way, but it's not a direct competitor to Lexis and Westlaw the way Bloomberg is trying to be. Hein Online has a variety of different quote-unquote what they call libraries, and that's their term. It's what's called an aggregator database. It pulls together lots of different types of documents, just like Lexis, Westlaw, Bloomberg does, cases, statutes, all bunch of different secondary sources that we've been looking at. So I'm here at the Law Library's homepage, and to get on Hein Online, I'm going to click on Topic List. This is my way to get to just about anything in the library's holdings. And I go there because I know that Hein Online, like BNA, is over here on the left. There are other ways to get there. If you have a favorite way, go for it. And so here you see the libraries, and these are not every single library available to Hein Online. We subscribe to a subset of them. There are a bunch of even more specialized libraries than you see here. But the one we're focusing on today, since we're talking about law reviews, is the Law Journals Library. Hein Online does not have the search capabilities that Lexis, Westlaw, or Bloomberg have, or Google Scholar for that matter. What Hein Online has is coverage, and coverage in PDF. If any of you are on a journal, you love that word PDF. Because if a law review has a chart, a picture, not too many of them do, but I'm sure you've seen a couple, Lexis and Westlaw may actually, and Bloomberg, may not actually show you that. They will say table, and you'll just see table 1, the words, without the table on Lexis and Westlaw. They're getting better as web capabilities are getting more and more sophisticated with images. But on Hein Online, it's PDF, so whatever was in the print, you get online. And this is the other big seller for Hein Online for law reviews, it goes back to the beginning. So Lexis and Westlaw, and I should have mentioned this earlier, only go back on law reviews to 1990s-ish, and it depends on, each title is different. So some will be 95, some will be 98, some might not be till 2002, and I'm obviously just pulling those years out of a hat. On Hein Online, they tend to go back to volume 1 of whatever the title is. Hein Online also has a lot of the super specialized journals that aren't even on Lexis or Westlaw because they're just so super specialized, and there are a lot of those. So as you can see, there is a search capability. As I mentioned, it's not that sophisticated, but if you're in a place that does subscribe to Hein Online, again, good to know about for the reasons I mentioned. It goes back to the beginning. If you have a really old article, shows all the tables and pictures to the extent there are any in a law review, and again is flat fee. So if you do want to look at a law review and for whatever reason you're in a place that subscribes to Hein Online and not Lexis and Westlaw, which I can't imagine, or Lexis and Westlaw, but you don't have law reviews in your package, definitely go to Hein Online. And the search, just the search boxes, you'd put in your text, what you would want to search. And the one thing you would want to check on Hein Online, as you would in any unfamiliar database, is you'd want to check out the search help. And of course, finding it is probably the biggest challenge to see what do I have available. Because Hein Online, like Bloomberg, does not do plain language. So you have to use, and Hein Online doesn't even do /s or /p. So that's why I say it's not nearly as sophisticated. Unless there are questions, I'm going to continue on past Hein Online and show you, last but not least in terms of what I'm going to talk about, is And this is specifically for articles. We're going to talk about law review articles today, and we're going to talk about non-legal articles next time, because you may be involved in an issue where you have to do some non-legal research, get some factual information. You're in a particularly specialized area. I had suggested in one of the prior classes that maybe you want to look and find out a little bit more about management of health maintenance organizations to find out what the standards are. We'll talk about that next time. Law review articles. Again, Lexis, Westlaw, Bloomberg, Hein Online, Google Scholar. If you're not finding what you're looking for, and you really, for whatever reason your issue is, you really do want to find a law review article, this is probably more likely going to be the case for writing a paper than it is going to be representing a client and doing that kind of legal research. You will want to go to a legal periodicals index. And the way to do that, again, is library homepage, topic list. Like I said, I always go to topic list. And since we are looking for articles, I will go to article finding. Excuse me. And from article finding, I will go to the index to legal periodicals. Not foreign, unless it's foreign that I want, but for our purposes, we obviously don't want foreign for our ERISA question. And what it pops up is, again, that multiple box format that we've now seen with the advanced search in our library catalog. We saw very briefly when I showed you Hein Online. This is going to be a format for a lot of databases that are not Lexis and Westlaw and that are not full text capable. When we search the library catalog, it's not searching the full text of every book in the library. We wish, not there yet. Hein Online actually does search the full text of all the law review articles, but as I said, it's a very simple interface. And this is what it is. Why do you want to search an index? Again, because your plain language search isn't working. I can't tell you how many times I'm working with students writing a paper. They come to the reference desk and they say, I can't find any law review articles on my subject. I've tried Lexis and Westlaw and spent 2 hours. And what I'll suggest then is, okay, let's come to an index. Probably because, again, the terminology is very common, so you wind up pulling up whole bunch of irrelevant articles. Not our situation. We found a lot of good ones for our ERISA preemption HMO liability, so this really wouldn't be necessary, but just to show you how it works. So I would put in our terms. So I'm just going to start very simple. I might just start with HMO, and again, because this is going to be a flat rate database, I'll do another search with health maintenance organization. And I want to search liability, but I don't want to search the whole world because I also want the word libel. So I am going to truncate. Now remember, with Lexis, Westlaw, and Bloomberg, to truncate, so I get libel, liability, I would use the exclamation. Here I'm putting the asterisk in. How did I figure that out? I went to help. Just like I did on Hein Online to check out what's available. And I went to help. And this is a little complex help, so admittedly this is a little tough to find. I went down to wildcard and truncation symbols because I know what I wanted was truncation. That was under W. And so here it talks about, now wildcards, if I want to put a symbol in the middle of the word, so say I'm searching British and American documents, and I'm searching the word color. C-O-L, in this database, I'd use the hash sign. Actually, in Lexis and Westlaw, I'd actually use the asterisk. I've done that, I don't know, if I've done that 10 times in the 20 plus years I've been doing this, that's a lot. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. But that's what a wildcard is. But truncation, that comes at the end of the word when you want libel, liability, or employ, employer, employed, or preempt, preempted, all those examples. So here it tells me the truncation symbol is an asterisk, which is how I knew that. Now for truncation symbols, the shortcut. Help is the long cut. The shortcut is Lexis and Westlaw, I know is exclamation, and Bloomberg, I know is exclamation. I just remember that because I use those every day. When it's not Lexis, Westlaw, Bloomberg, I try an asterisk. When it's not the asterisk, then I go to help. So I would try one or the other, exclamation, asterisk, and then when neither one works, then I'd go to help. That's the shortcut if you can remember. Okay, so I put in my search. Now I'm already in index to legal periodicals, so I know I'm going to get legal materials. So this fairly simple search is actually not a bad one. And you can see, get some results. Again, it's searching, basically this is an index. It's not searching the full text of the article, so it's searching the title, it's searching some subject descriptors, and you can see those here. Subjects, healthcare industry, malpractice, liability. That actually sounds like that might be useful. I might want to find other articles that talk about healthcare industry, malpractice, liability. So I can do that one of a couple of ways. I can dive into the article and click on the subject, which is kind of how we did it for the library catalog. Or on the side here, there's a subject link, and it lists for me a whole bunch of subjects. So if I click on show more, I can actually choose a bunch. So I like those too. I want articles that have both of those. And so I can update. And so now all of my articles have both of those subjects. You'll see a lot of them have PDFs, nice and easy to get to, or even HTML full text if you're happy just to read it on your screen. To the extent that you see an article that doesn't have one of those, the first thing I would do is copy and paste the title into Lexis or Westlaw, at least while I'm here and not worried about what the cost is. So here's an example, find article. So I would want to see maybe Journal Law and Health, that could be on Lexis or Westlaw. So I just copy and paste, as I said, the title, do a search on Lexis or Westlaw, whichever my favorite is, and see if I can find it there. Any questions on the index to legal periodicals? Again, an advanced tool that you'd use when the nice, easy, natural language isn't working for you. We saw a couple of those on Lexis and Westlaw. But this is another way to go, and honestly I have had good results in helping those students at the reference desk where Lexis and Westlaw hasn't been useful. I've gone on here, and because sometimes it's good that it doesn't search the full text because the full text is skewing it and bringing you too many irrelevant results. If it's just searching the title, which is typically tells you what an article's about, and just searching the subjects, which obviously is what the article is about, you sometimes can do better, again, depending on your issue. Any questions? As I feared, we're not going to have a whole lot of time for workshops, so if you want to spend the last 5 minutes, I would say do question 7, which is the index to legal periodicals, and I'd say do that one because that's what you're least familiar with. The others you're looking through Lexis, Westlaw, and Bloomberg, and at least Lexis and Westlaw I imagine you've done before. But it's just going over some of the techniques I've just showed you. Pass these down.
Next.
And I'll wander around for 5 minutes. If you don't finish it, that's fine. If you want to give it to me, that's fine. If you want to hold on to it and do the rest yourself, this is very loosey-goosey. As I mentioned before everybody got here, next class we will finish up secondary sources and I will distribute assignment 1, and I will leave plenty of time to talk about that, talk about the assignment and answer whatever questions you have. So I'll wander, but wave at me or yell at me. Well, don't yell at me. Question?
Just curious, it's either one's fine, right?
No, you want index
I'm sorry,
to legal periodicals. Oh, you've got
There's-
2
there's
lists?
2 of them,
Yeah,
yeah.
either one, you're in a different list than I was in, yes.
Thank you.
Some of you might wind up at the alphabetical list, and in the alphabetical list rather than the subject list, they list the exact same title twice. For reasons I won't bore you with, but if it says index legal periodicals, you're good. You just don't want foreign, because then you get foreign legal periodicals. If you need help getting there, you get it?
Yeah, I'm already here, right?
Oh, yep. That's the one, index, yep.
So we're using the same topic as always?
Using the one that you've used for past workshops. or if you don't remember it, make one up. If you're writing a paper this
Try and look
semester,
up.
this
Oh,
would be a good
okay.
one.
No, don't worry,
Sneak
don't
it
make any
in.
combination, I promise. I can see just fine.
So,
Can you get to the law library?
I don't
Go
know
for
what I'm
it.
doing, so.
I'll just watch.
To,
Question?
Well, that's
alphabetical
either.
list,
Yeah.
Like,
And
where
it's-
is that?
right in the middle, the bottom there,
I'm assuming some, yeah.
alphabetical list.
I was gonna.
Oh, there it is,
And then
okay.
the index.
okay, this is High non-Lon.
Yeah.
Okay. Question 7 is indexed to legal
Okay,
periodicals.
we're ready.
Okay, so
Where
you
is
wanna go
that?
back to the library homepage.
Just scroll down until you get to I.
Oh, it's
Index
alphabetical,
for
oh, I
vertical.
gotcha, I gotcha.
So,
Thanks.
yeah,
Sure.
the topic list looks like you've done it already. Article finding.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then scroll down. There are other ways to get there. You could actually search
Just, yeah.
at the
Google it.
front page.
Oh.
No, you don't wanna Google it.
No, I'm saying you can Google like Hofstra and that, can't you do that?
You can get to the Hofstra Law Library, you
Yeah.
can, and that's actually a good point, here, let me just get you started, index the legal, not the foreign.
Okay, okay.
For these other databases, like Index Legal Periodicals, RIA, you do wanna go through the library's homepage because of authentication issues. If you just Google it and go outside the library, you're not gonna go in with the correct URL, the correct web address, so it's not gonna know you're a Hofstra person and therefore entitled to access. So go through the library homepage. If you wanna use that search function that's below the catalog rather than the topic list, that's fine. However, Royce used the alphabetical list, that was cool. However you get there, but go through the library homepage.